Hey YouTubers, welcome back to another episode of Jack of All Trades. Tonight I got for you another segment for the Buick restoration video bit that I'm doing. Last time when we left off, I just explained that the engine had gone to the machine shop. We were going to get the bottom end done, new pistons, get some head work done, and then it was going to come back and we were going to work on the engine some more and then eventually put it in the Buick this winter when it cooled down. After months and months and months of waiting for parts, we finally got it in, and it just came back not too many days ago. I've been putting some parts on it as we've had it here in the shop, and tonight we're going to add some more parts, and I'm going to bring you along just to enjoy that ride. So tonight we're going to do lifters, we're going to do push rods, and we're going to do the valve assembly, the rockers and the rocker shafts. We're going to put all that on, lube everything up. I can go through a few of the specs on the engine. So the engine actually has some West Coast forged pistons that are reverse dome. The compression ratio on the engine is 10.32 to 1. And we got some stage 1 valves, some bowl blending, some porting done on the heads. And let's see here, we also have some high flow water pump, a Crowder cam. It is, I believe, 220, 228. Intake and exhaust, and the lobe separation is 112 degrees. And we had a lot of work done to these heads. These are the factory heads, stage 1 valves, new seats, and that's about it. Now I'll post some more details as we go. Let's go ahead and jump into this. I want to get these lifters put in, the push rods, so we can get the top end done, get the intake on, and get back to that process. So go ahead and stick around and watch it as we go. All right, we're going to start out with the lifters here, of course. And I've already taken the liberty of cleaning these all off. I've emptied them all out. I opened them up and I emptied all the solvent that's in it, that's shipped with it. Dried them off here. And what we're going to do is we're going to put some break-in lube on the faces of each one of them, put them in. We're going to lube them up. We're going to make sure all these shafts are clean and lubed here. They're already clean, of course, but we're going to make sure they're lubed up properly. So the grease is only going to go on the face, and then we're going to put a coat of oil on the outside and put them in, and that should be that. So here we go. Oh, also I'm going to test these out afterwards, and I'll give a demonstration. We'll see how these flow. I know some people might be curious how they flow. It took forever to find some parts. Just know that a lot of these lifters are the same for most of GM's different car lines, the Cadillac, so on and so forth. I think Chevy might be a little different. There we go. Yeah, one down, 15 to go. Now, something you want to try to do is try to only put the grease on the face of the lifter. Don't put it on the side, because that could keep the lifter from spinning. Not a difficult task at all. Taking them apart is kind of monotonous, all 16 of them. But you know, I just wanted to see what was inside. Don't necessarily know how clean these are when they come to you, so I wanted to see everything. It did have a pretty good coat of lubrication on it to keep it from, you know, rusting up when it's in transit, when it's getting shipped. I would say probably there was maybe half an ounce of looked like WD-40, but it was some kind of probably shipping lubricant. Real light oil. So far, all these are going down in there real good, nice and easy. See, if these have a coat of oil on them first, and then you put the grease on it, they are just gonna slide, it's gonna slide off. All right, so we got all the lifters in. About to pop the push rods in, and then we'll go for the rocker shaft assemblies and get them torqued down. And these are Melling push rods, standard length. I've already got them marked here so that I can see them moving whenever we do the startup. Make sure they're spinning. So this engine, some more things that I remembered. We had the head surfaced. So the heads are 69 cc's now. With the adjustment to the bowls, we also had it surfaced 15 thousandths, and the block itself was 30 thousandths was taken off of it, I believe. And so it's essentially with the pistons are flat to the deck almost. That's what brings the compression up. And the pistons are reverse dome. And they got little notches out. I think I got a picture I can show you. They all notches out of them. Okay. All right, now time for the rocker shaft assemblies. All right, so these get torqued at 25 foot-pounds. And we're gonna put them on nice and easy. Taking our time with them. Now I redid these earlier in the year. You might have seen the video for that. Just to get the new buttons on there. So the key here with the way this is you got the cylinder, the rotating assembly is in different phases of the stroke right now. So you got some valves that are open, some are closed, some are partially open. Some are partially closed. So what I gotta do here is I gotta make sure that I put even torque on all these bolts and run them down slowly and evenly so that the push rods compress the lifters. And that will take up the slack. Now these are standard length push rods, standard lifters, hydraulic lifters. Nothing fancy. And we're gonna eyeball everything here just to make sure there shouldn't be any geometry issues with this because it is a Buick and the rocker arm shaft kind of takes that out. But I'm curious to see how, because we've had a valve job done here. We got new Stage 1 valves. All the valve seats are redone. So I'm curious to see how, how all that turned out. So this is 25 foot-pounds. I'm gonna get a couple of them going, and then we'll get all 4 of them going on each side. And then once we start hitting some resistance, I'll switch it over to the torque wrench. So some videos I got lined up after this, if you're interested. We're going to be testing out a larger sandblaster from Harbor Freight, the 50-pound one. I'm going to see if it'll run off a small air compressor like I did with the Amazon pistol gun with the sandblaster for that. And I got to do my intake manifolds, or my exhaust manifolds. So what I plan to do is I got to sandblast the manifolds and the heat shields and everything, get them cleaned up, and then I'm going to port them. And I'm trying to open them up a little bit to get some better flow, at least clean them out, right? The one side's really long, and I don't think it's really going to be possible, but I can see how the gasket looks on it, see if I can do some gasket matching. And, you know, but I got to clean them up. It's got to happen anyway before I paint them. So that's going to be happening next. Also, I got a stage 1 pump. I'm trying to locate a stage 1 fuel pump. I've got a regular one. I wanted to do a demonstration on these double roller timing chains and how they interfere with the arm on the fuel pump. I've got at least 4 methods to fixing that, or to get around it. Now, of course, TA Performance, you know, who makes a lot of Buick parts, they've already figured a way around that by recreating the timing cover and making that location, you know, it doesn't have that interference anymore with the double roller timing chain, you know. But you know, there's some ways to get around it, and I'll show you. So that'll be on one of our future videos here coming up. So what I want to do here is once I got all these close, I want to make sure that they're all seated properly. I'm gonna take my time, so apologize, but sometimes you know, you want to do it right the first time. This isn't something I want to mess up, as simple as it is. Alright, so all of these are down. They still got a good ways to go before they're seated. I want to make sure there's no binding. We've already got a few of the push rods moving here. You want to see, as we take this one down, you'll see this lifter will collapse a little bit. See this right here? It's collapsing, okay? So that's good. It's what it's supposed to do. It's taking up the slack. That's the benefit of having these types of rocker arm systems and hydraulic lifter instead of having the solid lifters. Got this fancy little oil stick in today. Thanks, Bill. Wife doesn't really know it or doesn't admit it, but she threw the old one away when we were moving. Been talking about it for months, seeing if she would fess up to it, but I don't think she will. Oh well. The things are expensive to replace. Getting a new one is, at least. You know, one of the old styles. Alright, so this is 25 foot-pounds. So let's go around here and start working on them inside out. This is a 3/8. Trying to fit a 1/4 inch socket on a 3/8 drive. Doesn't work. All right, so I believe you're supposed to work, once we start getting it tighter here, we're gonna work on the inside out. And if something, as always, if something doesn't feel right, don't force it. God, I've learned that lesson the hard way, man. Luckily, it's not been too expensive. This will give, this slow and steady will give time for your lifters to properly bleed down and compress. You know, there's nothing in them right now, but they still have to compress. You don't want to rush that. All right, I'm gonna do the next side. You don't need to watch that in full motion, so, or regular motion. Let's go ahead and we'll speed through that. Other side here. All right, as promised, we're gonna test out the oiling. I just want to show you what I have here. So I have a half-inch socket, half-inch drive, half-inch socket, and it's an old one, just an old junk, probably made in Malaysia. Anyway, I want to show you that I just drilled. I cut down each side, and I shoved a half cut and half washer in there, and then I JB welded together. So this is my little tool for my oil pump. Here's the oil pump shaft, and it just fits in there perfectly, right? So this will allow me to run a little test on it to prime it, and we'll see how these lifters do. All right, so things don't always work as planned. We got a little hiccup last night whenever I was putting things back together, buttoning it up, and running a test on it to see if it would prime it properly. I probably should have primed it with just the lifters in place, but I did put the lifters and push rods and rocker arm shafts all together, and then went to see if I could get any oil up through the push rods. And unfortunately, I did have the number 2 cylinder exhaust side still bone dry after priming it for several minutes. So what I got to do now is I got to pull off the passenger side rocker arm shaft assemblies, pull that push rod out, and look at the actual lifter. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to determine if there's an obstruction in the push rod, and if the lifter is working properly. I might switch the lifter to another shaft to see if maybe it's that one. I'm going to pull it apart possibly. So we're going to troubleshoot it now and see what we can figure out. So first I'm going to go ahead and take this push rod assembly apart and pull it apart, and we're going to look through the push rod first to see if there's any obstruction. And then if that looks out okay, then we're going to take focus on the actual lifter itself. Right? So let's see. All right, so the rocker hole is open. The lifter is open. It looks good. Let's take this over to the bench and take a look at it. All right, let's take a good one and a known good one and a known bad one, and see if we can compare them. All right, so here's the bad one. I'm moving it over to the intake side from the exhaust. And here's the good one that was on the intake side and working properly. And now we're moving it to the exhaust side. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and try to prime it again, see what we get. All right, it just pushed all the air bubbles out of the bad one, I saw that. So we got good oiling coming out of the intake side now, which was the bad lifter. We got pretty slow oiling coming out of the exhaust side, but it is coming out. Okay, let's wipe that away and see what we can get again. All right, well, let's throw some push rods in there, see if it changes. And it may not come up without the pressure of the rocker arm shaft, but we'll see anyway if it seats. All right, yep. All right, let's put the rocker back arms back on and see what we get. Alright, so I've got you set up here perfectly to see the oiling. So we're getting oiling out of everything fine, except for this was the one that's this exhaust on number 2, exhaust rocker. Wasn't getting anything up through the push rod. As you can see here, you can see the hole. So there, it is clear through the rocker arm. And so we'll give it a go here and see what we can get. Hopefully it has changed. Alright, we're getting plenty of oil out of 4. Alright, you know what? I know what the problem is. So right now, both of these lifters are on the base circle. I'm positive it's probably because there's no pressure on it. So let's rotate it a little bit. There went one of the plugs. I want another plug. Another plug. So I got little covers on all the spark plug holes. So as I turn this, they're all blowing out. All right, so we got a little bit of lift now, so there's pressure on it. So let's see if we get anything out of it. All right, so I actually had to get it off the base circle on the cam for it to start oiling. So lesson learned there. It seemed like all the other ones were oiling on the base cam, so maybe this was, or the base circle of the cam. So maybe it's just that this one's, you know, got the least oil pressure out of all of them, and it really requires that pressure of being on the low before it gets oiled. See, we got oil now. And oil on the exhaust, but not really any oil on the intake. And that's because the intake has no pressure on it right now. It's fully closed. All right, actually, I'm just gonna cut in here real quick and let you know that this is actually day 3 of me messing with this. And I could not just settle with that, with the pressure over there, with it being up off the base circle. It actually should have flow even on the base circle, no matter where it's at. So what I did here is I noticed once I moved the one lifter over here, I started getting flow. I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to the lifter that I moved. And if you guys notice in the video, if you rewind, you'll see that this one actually stops oiling once I make that swap. So I know that all these different lifter bores are all gonna have slightly different specs, and all the lifters are gonna have slightly different specs. So what I did is I took this lifter here that wasn't oiling, and I found the spot that I thought did the best with oiling, and I switched them out, and it still didn't work. I switched out different push rods. I moved this lifter all over the place, 4 different spots, 4 different push rods. It still didn't oil. I took it out again. If you remember, I'd already removed it once. I took it out again, opened it up, cleaned it out, looked it over. I couldn't find anything wrong with it. I really have no idea what's wrong with it. I even put it back where it originally was, tightened down the rocker arms to see if maybe that it would work if it had more pressure on it. Still didn't work. It's a defective lifter. Okay, so I'm gonna have to contact the seller and get a new lifter. That's what's going on here. That's what all my troubleshooting has figured out. and I'm okay with that. That's what I've settled with being the problem, just because I've eliminated everything here that it could be, and it has to be the lifter. The lifter is the only thing. The lifter is the only thing that has changed every time and has not worked. So this lifter is defective. It's going to go back. We'll get a new one put in. Hopefully it works. Hopefully this has helped you out. I'm actually, I'm going to go back to the ending here of the video, back to day 2, because I had already decided that I was done with this, but I couldn't just be okay with that. So here's the ending. Take care. All right, well, mystery solved. Lessons learned. Maybe that'll help somebody else out. Who knows? I'm actually happy that it's figured out, because you gotta do these things now while you can see it, while you can control it, before you're learning these lessons while you're breaking in the cam and nothing's oiling. So get all the small stuff figured out now, because it's going to get kind of crazy when you're doing the break-in of the cam, and those very important minutes that go by. So I'm glad this worked out. I hope maybe you seeing me learn this lesson live on the video can maybe help you learn this lesson if you're doing this too. But anyway, I'm going to finish putting this together. I'm happy that's over with, and stay tuned for the next videos. We're going to do the exhaust manifolds next, porting those out, sandblasting them. We're going to test our new sandblaster like I mentioned, and we got our intake that we have to do. I'm going to do a video on the valley pan, because I know some people have questions on that, how that's done. So I'm going to do some research on that and do the valley pan gasket next. And so stay tuned, hit that like and subscribe, and I'll take care, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.